Thank you, Andrew, and welcome everybody who is joining us virtually for this town hall. This is our third of four town halls that we are hosting in March to solicit input and share information with our residents about what's going on in Rocklin, tell you a lot of good things that are happening, answer your questions, and start a conversation about how we're going to move things forward in the future. I wanted to share that we have representatives from every city department joining us tonight. So questions that you may have, and that will happen towards the end of the program, and Andrew will give more information about that. Any questions that you may have, we will be able to either provide answers right now or follow up with you afterwards. I thank you so much for spending time with us and taking time out of your evening to be here. And I'm going to turn it back over to Andrew to get us started.
Great, thank you, Allie. So if you do have questions, as Ali mentioned, there's two ways to submit them. You'll see a QR code here as well as throughout the presentation. So if you have a second device, you can scan that QR code and then submit your questions that way. Or you can use the Zoom Q&A feature. We are not having participants speak on the town hall. We'll be sharing information and we'll take those written Q&As through the Zoom Q&A feature, which you should have at the bottom of your screen, or you can use the QR code here as well to be able to answer your questions, and we'll answer those at the end of the program tonight. So jumping right in, as Ali mentioned, we're going to talk about Rocklin priorities in the future. So a little bit about the community. Rocklin's a high quality of life community. It's tight-knit, engaged community, maintains its small town feel despite some growth over the years, where it's now 72,000 residents, but it doesn't have that feel of a city. It has that small town kind of family-friendly feel. The community is very engaged. This is the third town hall. We've had good attendance at the previous two. We've got a good participant group here tonight, and it's a community that really values its outdoor spaces, open spaces, parks, and public trails. And, we just put this on here because it's a recent recognition that we received from U.S. News and World Report that we're the #9 best place to live in California. It's just one of kind of many of those types of recognition the city has received over the years. And continuously, we are told, not just by these outside agencies, but by our residents through surveys, that the services we provide are pretty good, and they're pretty satisfied with them, as well as folks enjoy living here and would recommend living here to others. This, from a city standpoint, this doesn't happen by accident. It's not all the city's doing that Rocklin's a great place. A lot of it is the community and the community partnerships, and we just participate in that. But our role is important in the services we provide, and these things happen because the city has a focus on certain priorities that are well established, and they permeate all things that we do. The City Council has established priorities. They're listed on the page here: resilient, vibrant, livable, sustainable, and safe. Those were established at a strategic planning session last March of 2025. And you'll see imagery on this page and throughout this presentation that was live drawn by an artist that attended that. And so that imagery is intended to convey the message that some of the things we're talking about here, they are not just on paper for this presentation, but they are the topmost values that the City Council and the executive team have, and we focus our work and build our work plans around. So briefly about these, resilient is a priority that focuses on our infrastructure, making sure our infrastructure can withstand whatever challenges from just a use standpoint, a maintenance standpoint, climate standpoint, whatever challenge is thrown at it, we're able to handle it and keep that infrastructure in a good condition. Vibrant is related to our economy, making sure that we have places where people can recreate, where people can enjoy, restaurants and vibrant economy in that respect. Also have places to work close by, so that it's a high quality of life community from that respect. Livable focuses on us having quality outdoor spaces, places for folks to go and enjoy, getting into parks, being able to have neighborhoods they feel safe walking in, those types of amenities that are very important to quality of life. Sustainable focuses on financial stability. It really focuses on ensuring that these services that residents are telling us are high quality now, we're able to continue to provide those at a consistent rate and a rate that residents expect into the future. And then SAFE focuses on our public safety aspects. When you call 911, we need to make sure that somebody's able to respond. They're able to respond in a timely fashion so they can affect a positive outcome, and as well as people feel safe in the community so our police department can respond to and proactively address crimes within the community. So I talked a little bit about some of these vital city services already, but just to briefly go through, we provide services to the community, including providing safe neighborhoods. So from police services, we provide help in a medical and a fire-related emergency or any type of emergency that somebody has. We provide streets and roads, so that's making sure that they're safe, that the traffic is controlled, and that the infrastructure is maintained. Parks and open spaces, recreational venues, the programs that accompany those spaces. We provide art and cultural opportunities, as well as maintain infrastructure throughout the city, as well as many other services. This next slide shows a snapshot of the city budget. And the summary is we have a pretty good history, long-standing history of responsible budget performance. We have a sound budget right now. Our budget is balanced. We have a reputation of being fiscally responsible with the dollars that we receive. We have reserves in appropriate places to be able to withstand immediate emergencies. And generally, you'll see some more information about how we do a pretty good job with financial management. So this represents the current fiscal year, this pie chart here on the right-hand side. And you'll see the bulk of the dollars here from our city's general fund go to police and fire in the big blue and red slices of the, I guess it's a donut, not a pie chart, right? And then you have public works and parks being a little bit smaller amounts there out of that. The donut represents just the general fund. So really quick understanding of what the general fund is. Those are general tax dollars that don't have a legislative or regulatory mandated purpose for us to spend a dollar. So the city council can allocate general fund dollars to any municipal purpose. The public works and parks slices of the donut actually have smaller amounts, and that's because they have dedicated revenue sources. So many folks pay a property tax in town if you own a home for specific to park services, and that provides dedicated revenue just to parks. It can't be used for police or fire services. Then you have things like a gas tax that you pay when you fill up your car. Those dollars go to repairing roads. So that would be part of our public works budget. Those aren't represented in that 8 and 6% for parks and public works. So that's why you see smaller dollars for those. Budget management, again, said I would brag a little bit more about the good job that staff does with that. We have a AAA bond rating. AAA bond rating puts us in the top quarter of 1% of agencies nationwide. It's equivalent to a perfect credit score for an individual. The city has been recognized by a third-party independent agency with that distinction. We also receive annual awards from national and state peer recognition groups for our budget presentation and our financial report, our annual audit presentation. And we also prudently plan for the future. So we're looking at a 5-year forecast, not just this current budget year. We're looking at 5 years out. And that's part of what's driving some of this conversation as we get further into it. In those long-term forecasts, we are recognizing that expenditures are outpacing revenues, and that is something that the city is looking at strategies to address going forward. So some more positives about what the city has accomplished and things that we think are good news and good stories to communicate to you all and tell about some of the good work that the city has done. We've experienced some 3 straight years of reduced crime, and in the recently published 2025 annual report, the police department reported that we have a single-digit crime rate within the city of Rocklin. That means there are less than 10 crimes per 1,000 residents in the year 2025. That's off the charts positive report. Really, the partnership between our police department and the community in being able to address not just major crimes, but all crimes, being proactive, addressing some of the smaller issues within the community, and making partnerships with the community. It's a tremendous testament to the type of people that are here, as well as the work that our men and women in the police department do. We've also received, you'll see a couple of bullet points here about dollars that the city has received from outside sources. We've received $18 million in grant funds for infrastructure projects over the last 5 years. The fire department has also received significant dollars for equipment purchases and to staff a fire station for the first 3 years that we are currently working on. And we also use federal funding to complete ADA improvements to our sidewalks. So we're looking at outside resources wherever possible to be able to fund local improvements and benefits to the community. So with that, the city does have needs to be able to meet that sustainable financial goal that we do have. And primarily those needs are to continue to preserve the service levels that residents have come to expect in Rocklin, and we think that we should continue to provide. The needs that the city identified were primarily public safety. So we look at medical and fire response. Seconds and minutes matter when you call 911. So we need to make sure that we have someone who can show up in time to affect a positive outcome. Public safety services, as I mentioned before, this is not just responding to criminal activity. This is actually making sure that our police department has the technology to monitor activity within the city, as well as follow and respond to live events as they occur. And we can also be partners with the community to create crime prevention programs and work with the community on solutions. Parks and open space. This is a big thing, I think, for physical health as well as mental health, having spaces that people can get out into with the family, just for a walk, take the dog, whatever you'd like to do in those spaces. Very important to a vibrant, thriving community like Rocklin. Streets and roads, we've all driven on good ones, we've all driven on bad ones. Hopefully most of the bad ones are outside the city. We do our best to keep them in high working order. It's good for all of us, for our for our pocketbooks and our car maintenance, as well as long run better off for the city if we keep on top of that in terms of cost of repair. Programs and facilities. Rocklin has a great set of programs that we offer, a diverse set of programs that we offer to our youth and to all community members. And we also need to ensure that we have the adequate facilities and infrastructure to offer those programs, and that those are in quality, working order, and usable condition at all times. And last but not least is accountability and transparency. So I mentioned that the graphics will appear in this presentation from that strategic planning session from 2025. And I like to point out this one on this page. Sometimes accountability and transparency is thrown out there as just something that we should do. But when asked the question of what do you want to be known for, these 4 attributes came out, and they were picked up on by the independent artist that was drawing the live drawing the event. That the city wants to be known for fiscally sound decisions, being professional and transparent, being accountable to residents, and being here to serve. So this accountability and transparent is inherent in all that we do. Accountability and transparency is inherent in all we do, and it really is core to the values of the city council and the executive team. So we identified that list of priorities, and then we began this conversation with the public about what your list of priorities are. And so in the fall, we sent out this mailer that you may have received with a little survey attached. And that mailer had a survey, and it listed out those priorities I just mentioned. And we sent that out to every household in Rocklin. We received 3,000 responses, which is fairly high response rate for the approximately 27,000 surveys that we did send out. And so what you told us is that largely your priorities were in line with the city's priorities. And those priorities are listed here on this page, and they're in kind of 3 tiers. 1 and 2 are a top tier 1, a clear favorite or a top priority of Rocklin residents. 3 and 4 were a clear tier 2, and then a tier 3 is 5 and 6. And that doesn't mean that anything on here is any less important or is not a priority or not important to the city, but just when asked to force rank, this is the order they came out in. So number 1 and 2 really are public safety focused. Number 1 being the police side of public safety, ensuring that we have a safe community, the officers have the resources they need to do their jobs, to be able to respond to all levels of crimes and work with the community on prevention programs and patrolling neighborhoods. Number 2 is rapid response times for emergency medical and fire service calls. Number 3 talks about our parks and open space and ensuring that they're safe and safe spaces for folks to play in and be outdoors. Number 4 is that financial transparency and accountability piece. 5 gets into the infrastructure maintenance, and number 6 is providing valued youth programs and facilities and infrastructure related to that. And again, this does not mean that any one of these is any less important. It's just when asked to prioritize, this is the listing and the ranking that folks told us. We also got a lot of questions. So of those 3,000 responses we received from you, we got 950 comments from residents. We read each one of those with staff. We responded to those. About 140 actually were what we answered. Some of those got phone calls, some got emails. We had a cup of coffee with a few folks that had some really in-depth questions and wanted some further conversation. So I have summarized the top 4 questions here just so we can provide that information, and then we can get more into your Q&A after we talk about next steps after that. And again, if you do have questions, you'll see the QR code in the bottom. You can use that, or there's a Q&A button on Zoom. Both will be monitored by staff when we get to the Q&A further on in the presentation. So question number 1 was related to e-bikes. So specifically the traffic safety concerns related to e-bikes and what the city's doing about that. So state of California makes it challenging for cities to regulate, but that doesn't stop us from doing what we can to provide the safest environment here in Rocklin. The challenge from the state is that pedal bikes and e-bikes are treated the same by law, and so any regulation that applies to one must apply to the other. We know that they're different, and the safety requirements for the 2 types of transportation are different. However, that is a state mandate that we treat the 2 the same. So with that in mind, the city was not able to directly regulate the use of e-bikes. So we started with educational efforts, providing information, flyers, videos, a safety page on the city's website to just educate the public about the differences and the challenges that e-bikes pose for safety. On an enforcement front, there is the ability for school districts to regulate what types of bikes and modes of transportation the kids that are attending school are using and bringing to the school. And so our police chief and police department worked very closely with the Rocklin Unified School District on crafting a policy that would help limit the type 2s and 3 bikes from coming to the campuses. Those are the types of bikes with, ability to go faster, accelerate faster, cause more of the problems than the type 1 bikes, which are a little bit safer and we're more comfortable with the kids driving and bringing to school. And the school district did adopt this policy in December, and it limited those types of bikes. And we continued the education and outreach on that. Started the pilot program, or started the education piece on the new policy in January of this calendar year, and in February began enforcement and saw a substantial reduction in some cases, some campuses over 95% reduction in those type 2s and 3s showing up on campus almost immediately. And so hopefully long-term this makes people think twice about buying those types of bikes for the younger riders that aren't licensed drivers and used to the rules of the road, and creates a safer environment within the overall community. If you have a Type 2 or 3 e-bike, I heard there's a very inexpensive conversion kit to turn it into a Type 1 that you can purchase at the local bike shop. I hear it's in the $20–$25 range, and it's not a complicated project. So you can still use that bike if a child is riding it with that conversion kit and not be in violation of this policy. We're also still working on other programs with our partners to see if there are other enforcement or education measures we can take. Question number 2 is also related to traffic, but this is specific to vehicle traffic and speeding and traffic safety in residential streets, and what does the city do about it? Number 1, we respond to you. So if you have an issue, you can use our QR code here and put a question in about it, or you can use the Q&A on this Zoom, or if you're not on this webinar, which is most of the time, you can then call our number that's here, which will go to our police non-emergency line. You can use the Access Rocklin mobile app, which is available in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. You can contact any one of those methods, and we would respond accordingly and review those requests. We also have officers that are regularly daily conducting traffic enforcement throughout the city, and they're strategically deployed based on areas where they know that there is going to be likely speeding or other violations occurring, or otherwise potentially unsafe driving conditions, to try to create the best environment for all vehicles on the road. Our police department also works with our public works department on potential solutions if those things are available for, signage or road design or other traffic measures if possible. Number 3, what's the city doing about the downtown area, revitalization on Pacific Street to support the businesses there, create housing opportunities, and also increase the usage of city assets or community assets like Quarry Park? Well, there's a lot going on in this area. I'm very excited to talk about this. I could spend a whole session just talking about what's going on there, but just briefly, the city spent a significant amount of time and energy in creating the asset to the region, really, in the Quarry Park Amphitheater, where we have great concerts coming in during the spring and summer season. We have the Quarry Park Adventures that the city helps to support, to be able to create some active youth spaces for youth and community from all over Northern California, really. And so building upon that, the city also has purchased the property of the old Big Gun Quarry on Pacific Street, so that's right adjacent to the Quarry Park Adventures. Last summer, completed the environmental work on that, and we are in a contract with a private developer to develop that project, purchase the property for the city, and using private investment dollars, develop that project into a very exciting Rocklin public market project. There's information on our website about that project. If you Google Rocklin Public Market, you'll be able to find information on the city's website. But the development will consist of a very beautiful 2-story brewery restaurant building that will overlook the Quarry Park Adventures into the Quarry Park Amphitheater, a place where you can have a beer, have a meal, sit on the patio or the balcony and actually watch the concerts. You'll be able to hear the concerts from there. So we'll expand the attraction of those concerts, make them more of a draw. This space will be a great draw. In addition to that building, there'll also be 20 residential units on top of some of the buildings in here that will provide living space in downtown. There will be an open concept public market with 12 to 20 food and beverage retailers in an open concept with common seating downstairs. It will have a second floor with seating and private rooms that will also be open and be able to overlook that downstairs area. In between those 2 buildings will be like a plaza common space. We've also got 2 other buildings with downstairs retail and upstairs office that will be located there. Very exciting project. The project will also be paving the public lot that's adjacent to it, so providing some public benefit as well, and connectivity even into Rocklin Road from a pedestrian standpoint there. So lot of great things hopefully to come out of there to create some energy in downtown. You'll see on the image in the upper right here, the top left corner of that image is a vacant space on the corner of the roundabout at Rocklin and Pacific. That is across from the gas station. That's actually city-owned property. The City Council took this step this last fall to exempt that from the Surplus Land Act, which allows us then to take the next steps to begin to market the property for future development, hopefully taking advantage of some of the other private investment that's occurring adjacent at the project they just talked about, the Rocklin Public Market. So very excited about those two opportunities. Further up the street here, as you go on Pacific, the other direction from the public market out towards Midas, between Oak and Pine, is an affordable housing development that is coming in, 110 units. They're currently under construction. They're doing a lot of their grading work right now and site work to begin to go vertical here very shortly. Hopefully they'll be leasing those next spring and summer is the plan, and occupying them then. That will create more residents downtown, which will create more life downtown, more folks walking, and more people with disposable income down there to be able to frequent the restaurants and other businesses. So hopefully creating some more life and vibrancy down there. So that's just a couple of things that are going on. We've got further visions beyond that, but that's what we can, we can say is happening in the short term, and very excited about those. Number 4, question, the fourth of the common questions, and then we'll get to your Q&A. So if you have questions, again, use the Zoom Q&A as well as this QR code. Either method works. We'll monitor those. How is the city addressing the continued growth of youth sports, particularly to ensure fields and facilities remain safe, usable, and well-maintained? This is a great problem to have. Really like to have such high usage of our facilities. We take a lot of pride in them and put a lot of resources in, and the community put a lot of resources and spend a lot of money to create these facilities. We want to make sure they're used. And so we welcome the challenge, but it is a challenge, and it makes it difficult to keep the facilities in the right and optimal condition. But primarily what we do is we work with our partner groups that are using these facilities to ensure that we have the appropriate rest periods for the turf facilities, particularly natural grass facilities. You have to give it rest so the grass can grow back. And we schedule those periods as appropriate to ensure that that they maintain themselves in optimal condition. And we also make sure that those groups and the city are doing the appropriate maintenance that's required by each party. The Northwest Community Parks Master Plan is underlined there. We are working on a master planning project. We're nearing the end of the master planning project for Whitney Park, Margaret Acevedo and Kathy Lund Park, the regional parks, community parks in the northwest area of the city. Looking at those rather from an individual park basis, but a system-wide basis as to what's the best strategic use for the last remaining undeveloped spaces of those parks, as well as consideration of co-location of like shapes together. In short, geometry teaches us that if you co-locate like shapes, you can get more of those shapes in total than if you kind of mix and match, diamonds and rectangles and circles and the like. So trying to find the most efficient use for that land space out there, and in that project, as well as system-wide, looking at opportunities for dedicated sports space to better serve those growing communities. So what's next on in our conversation? So right now we're in our town hall series. We started this with a survey. We got responses there. We've had conversations with a lot of community groups. Now we've started these town halls. This is the third of 4. We have one more next week. And all of this is kind of leading up to what's the potential solution for the revenue imbalance I briefly mentioned early on. And one of the solutions that we're considering is a potential increase to the sales tax in Rocklin. And so city decisions about that would follow after we gather all this community input and outreach. as noted early on, no decisions have been made. This is a staff-driven effort to just have conversation with the public, and any ballot measure, the language of that ballot measure, and placing that ballot measure on the ballot would ultimately be a city council decision, and then any actual approval of a ballot measure, revenue measure, would be up to the voters of Rocklin, and would ultimately be your decision as residents. So that kind of leads us into, why we gathered everyone here tonight and invited everyone to these town halls. Is, before making a decision like this, it's important that we involve the community, when the city and the community work together, and have these types of conversations. I think it yields better outcomes. So we're here to ask, what do you think? What questions you have, and what do you need to know? And we have the QR code that will be up, and we have the Zoom Q&A that you're able to use both to answer questions. And so with that, I also have some contact information here. If you do have questions after the fact, this city manager at rocklin.ca.us reaches all of us in our city manager's office, and we'll be able to respond to you. So I will leave it here with that QR code and also the Zoom Q&A link. And I'll turn it over to Elizabeth Sorg, our assistant to the city manager, and she will be able to facilitate the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. We have a couple questions here on the Zoom Q&A. So the first one that we received is about unleashed dogs in city parks, and so what the city can do to prevent unleashed dogs in parks.
That's a great question, and I believe Veronica Tracy, our Parks and Rec director, can take the first stab at that, and then if there's any follow-up, we can possibly bring in PD if they have anything to add.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, unleashed dogs in parks are sometimes a thing that we see and notice. We definitely have signage at the entrance of all of our parks as well as at the start of all of our trailheads. But we are thinking deeply about how to possibly increase or move signage just to make sure that people are very aware of that policy.
Thank you.
And I can just jump in as well and just say it's good to see you virtually, Mr. Peterson. We have added in some extra patrols over the past few weeks as well, where we've been in between calls for service or incidents that we're working through. We've been trying to get people out onto the trails and to the parks, and that'll continue moving forward.
Great, thank you. Elizabeth, next question?
Yeah, another question here about e-bike usage. So maybe some more information about how our officers are enforcing proper e-bike usage. Specifically, the question asker has concerns about like large amounts of people riding together and not adhering to stop signs or bothering pedestrians or riding on sidewalks.
All right, Chief, you're up.
All right. Well, thank you for the question. Like Assistant City Manager Keys was talking about, we put a lot of time and effort into e-bike enforcement education over the past probably 2 years. Specifically, the large groups that will ride together from time to time. We do spend a good amount of time actually working with some of the other allied agencies and kind of coordinating our enforcement action. We get them here less often than some of the nearby cities, but I do know that they pop up from time to time. And our actual strategy with this has been to do what we can to get to the source of the issue, which is these 11 to 15-year-olds that are actually obtaining the bikes initially. And that's really what the policy with the school board is going to be able to address. Andrew Keys said that initially we saw a huge reduction on our campuses. And I'm really excited because I think in subsequent years, we're going to see even less and less 11 to 15-year-olds with those Class 2 e-bikes because we've addressed it at the source of the problem. our messaging is, Rocklin's going class one only for e-bikes on our K through 8 campuses. And so I think we've done a decent job this year reducing it, and then I really see that I think we're going to see the benefits in subsequent years.
Great. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate the answer. Elizabeth, any additional questions?
Yeah, we do have another question. What other options have been considered where additional revenue is required other than increasing sales tax? This is a multi-part. What revenue comes in from business parks or large property owners like Jessup?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll do the first part of the question. So, what other options have been considered where additional revenue is required other than increasing the sales tax?
Yeah, the city has continuously looked at development opportunities strategically and trying to bring in business to the community to ensure that we have a thriving economy. You will see opening hopefully very shortly here, Rivian being added to our list of auto dealerships on Granite Drive. Recently, they painted the building where the Harley Davidson used to be, and that will be a great benefit to the community, as well as some other opportunities that we continue to pursue. It's not just about asking the residents, as noted in the previous slide. We've sought a lot of outside resources for infrastructure project, one-time dollars, grant funds, as well as the grant I briefly mentioned, the SAFER grant, where we are seeking funds or we sought funds and were awarded funds to staff the fire station with 9 additional firefighters, and are receiving that funding through the federal government for the first 3 years of those employees' tenure in Rocklin. So we're looking at all other options to increase revenue, both from an economic standpoint as well as from a grant and available resources standpoint. And then the conversation with the residents about increased local revenues is, comes after we continue to seek those dollars. And if this ultimately were to result in an additional tax, we wouldn't stop looking for those outside sources. That's, part of what we do because it's more efficient and strategic. You're paying federal taxes just like you're paying local taxes, so we might as well go look for those dollars when they're available.
And then the second part of that question is revenue sources coming in from other commercial or business developments or very large property owners like Jessup, if we have any sense of how much revenue we receive from those types of property owners.
It's dependent on the type of property owner, but Jessup is they're a nonprofit university, and so they're not selling goods and services on the site, so the revenue to the city is fairly low for that type of large property. But the value that having a university in your city to the community is significant. It brings in an educated population, provides an opportunity and an outlet for our citizens as they continue their education to take courses there. But that is not a prime economic development in terms of revenue opportunity for the city, but it does help prepare Rocklin residents and provide an asset for the community to be able to prepare themselves for appropriate careers.
And we did have a follow-up from the question asker who had a concern about e-bikes, just saying that they're witnessing it not just in schools, but also particularly in Margaret Azevedo Park. So not really a question there, but just wanted to provide that additional information. And then we did receive another question. How would you respond to business owners who are concerned that increasing sales tax results in decreased revenue for their businesses? And do we have any data on the impact to other cities that have implemented supplemental sales tax like this?
That's a great question. I'll start with the first part of that. So In terms of I'll start with the second part of that. In terms of the impact on other communities, or I mean, on businesses in other communities, there really hasn't been an analysis that has showed that it's negatively impacted those businesses. Typically, it has a neutral impact with the rates that we're talking about. Sales tax is regulated by the state of California, so there's a maximum amount of additional sales tax you can add. And so it keeps all agencies within a reasonable band of each other, so that comparison shopping from a consumer standpoint is typically not worth it, so you don't see that impact from the community. Sales tax is also charged at point of sale, so it's not a reduction. It's not a cost to the business. The business actually is proactively collecting it. So whether your rate is, 7.25% or a 7.75%, or it's 8.25%, that's added to whatever purchase price you have and then collected by the business and remitted. So it really hasn't had that impact in other communities. In terms of the competitiveness or loss of revenue to an individual business, I'd also like to point out that many of our neighbors have additional sales taxes. City of Roseville has a 1/2 cent sales tax. Loomis has a 1/4 cent sales tax. If you go anywhere in Sacramento, there's a range of sales taxes, but those communities all have a sales tax. And so Rocklin residents are already paying this type of tax in those other communities. City of Rocklin currently has no additional sales tax. So we're at the state minimum rate, and we don't have any of that additional revenue coming into our community when people come in and shop, or when residents shop locally. So this would allow us to capture that on local sales and keep those dollars. One other point that, it's kind of an accident of how these laws were initially created. It's a more modern, this type of tax, the type of add-on tax that we would be potentially considering here is called a transaction and use tax. To the average resident, it's a sales tax. It will function very much the same, but what it actually does is it allows us to capture more of the online transactions and keep those dollars local. The way that state law for the sales tax, which is the current tax that's only charged in Rocklin, is distributed on online transactions, is those dollars actually are collected at a county level and put into a pool for all Amazon transactions that come into the county, and then those are distributed to the cities by the city's proportion of their bricks and mortar retail. And where the heavy concentration of bricks and mortar retail is in Placer County is in Roseville. They have the very large Galleria and the fountains and those types of shopping areas. And, we have a very vibrant auto community, but they have a larger one with more dealerships, and those are heavy ticket items. And so that skews in their favor. And so there's a loss from Rocklin. In this type of add-on tax, 100% of that revenue would stay in Rocklin based on the site of delivery. So it actually would help us to keep with the trends of where sales tax is going and retail is going. Great question. Elizabeth?
That is it for the Q&A in Zoom. I am going to hand it over to Management Analyst Gabrielle DeFarcy in the City Manager's Office. She is monitoring the QR code responses, and she can let you know what came in there.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Yeah, we have a few questions that came in. The first that I'll start with is Rocklin has many hills with grassy hillsides. The question is, can we build footpaths at half height along these hills? They could connect streets and parks and neighborhood, increasing walkways, providing views, and even fire breaks.
That's another great question. I think I will turn that over to Veronica Tracy, our Parks and Rec Director, and if there's additional, we can go to perhaps our Public Works group.
Thank you. Absolutely. Great question. We love to think about trail connections in Parks and Recreation. A lot of grassy hillside, a lot of beautiful open space. We have a Parks and Trails master plan that was approved years ago by City Council that really dictates some prioritized trail connections and an entire trail kind of someday connecting all of town to each other like this vision. And we are working to really prioritize those trail connections and trail sections as much as we can. Some of the constraints that we have within our open spaces are that some are utility easements, some are owned by utility providers, and we are working with some of those providers to figure out how we can make some of those more public. That is one of our constraints that we're working with. Some of the other open spaces in town are conservation easements, environmentally sensitive areas, stormwater infrastructures. They can even be owned sometimes by HOAs. And so we are working to find routes around that and really interested in making trail connections whenever possible. But I'd love to talk to you offline if you have specific thoughts about connections that we might not have thought about before. So we'd love to evaluate your specific thoughts, and I'd love to talk to you offline about that.
Thank you, Veronica. And I believe this person did provide contact information, so I can share that with you at the conclusion of the webinar today.
Perfect, thank you.
So the next question that we have is, what would it take to bring a makerspace to Rocklin residents? This individual acknowledged that there is one at Sierra College, but it is only for students and faculty, and noted that residents of all kinds, students, businesses, could benefit from something like this. So once again, the question is, what would it take to bring a makerspace to Rocklin?
All right, well, that's a great question. I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Ali Zimmerman, our city manager, who has some information about that.
It's not that I have information about it. I'm not sure the history of the questioner, but there actually was a makerspace in Rocklin for a number of years. A Hacker Lab location was in one of the shopping centers on Granite Drive, and it closed down during COVID. That was actually a pretty disappointing for the community because I know there were a lot of people who used that space. What I wanted to share was we would love to welcome a makerspace, but one of the things that the city does not do is the city is not typically a property owner. And so what we like to do is work with businesses that want to work in the city to help them make a space here. So if you are a maker, if you are a business owner, entrepreneur who would like to explore bringing a makerspace to Rocklin, you can reach out to Andrew Keys or anyone in the city manager's office. We would love to show you the business support opportunities we have in our office to look at potential retail spaces and other opportunities to bring your business to Rocklin, whether it's a makerspace or something else. And Andrew, if you have anything else to add, I'd love it if you could, but we'd love to have a Hacker Lab or a similar vocation back in here. There were a lot of small businesses in there doing great things.
Thank
You're
you,
muted.
Ali. Oh. Andrew, are you going to add anything, or should I move on to the next question?
I just got the notice that I was muted. Sorry. You think by now we would have figured this Zoom thing out, but apologies. Our Parks and Rec director, Veronica Tracy, also has something to add, so I'll let her in. But yeah, I agree with everything that Ali just said. A makerspace would be phenomenal. And so anyone who's interested, please get in touch with me. That's what part of what I do is I work with potential businesses and try to, either find space for them or help them through the process of getting open. So if someone's interested, bring them our way. Veronica?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight two maker space type opportunities that are on a smaller scale. Rocklin has the very distinct honor of being one of three actual maker fairs that happen in California every year. So we join with our partners at Sierra College, and every October we have a maker fair. There's one in San Francisco, one in LA, and then us. And so we are really proud to be always trying to look at ways to invite makers into our community. And that is one way That if you're a maker or know others, please feel free to join us at that event and show off your skills as an entry into that idea as well. There's also a great local business that we work with in Parks and Recreation. They're a nonprofit called Recreate, and they have an arts and crafts type maker space. They call it their creative maker studio. And they often have people bring in tools and other things. It's not just arts and crafts related. So I would encourage you to look at that business as well.
Thank you, Veronica. And Andrew, I will note this individual did say that they would like to be contacted regarding this, so I will share their information with you at the conclusion of the webinar as well.
Thank you, Gabby. We'll be in touch. Additional questions?
Yes, it looks like we have one more question. Let's see. Please consider more, it's kind of a question, kind of a statement. Please consider more ways to make our residential streets quiet and reducing fast cars. For example, alternate parking areas on the curbs to make car traffic meander and slow down. Things that would be minimal costs, such as painting on the pavement, and specifically called out Farron Street.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, as noted previously, we do address traffic concerns on a proactive basis as well as on a complaint-driven basis. So our police department and will definitely note that. And then if there's any additional follow-up information that you'd like to provide, Chief Banks or Public Works, feel free to add on. Okay, not seeing anything there. I think we covered that one. Is there any additional questions that have come in, or as I've noted a few times, you have the QR code here. You can scan and put in questions, or you can use the Zoom Q&A.
Andrew, that is all that we have. Oh, let's see. I just misspoke by a couple of seconds. One just more popped up in the Google form. Let me pull this open. Okay. What is the plan to improve our roads in Stanford Ranch, specifically Park, Stanford Ranch? They joined a little late, so they missed out on some e-bike information. They saw a ticket written on Crest today. So if if someone could provide a very brief update for that individual that just joined as well.
Great. I'll go ahead and go to Justin Narker, our Public Works Director. He can answer the question about street maintenance in general and specific to the areas mentioned. And then afterwards, Rustin, if you want to give the Chief Banks, you want to give the high level e-bike just for the record again, would be great.
Good evening. Yeah, for pavement management, we work with our engineering department that does an evaluation of all the streets and then helps us prioritize where they're at. I know right now they're putting together a 5-year pavement management plan to help us look forward and also coordinate with our utility companies so that we're not doing a road and then having the utility company come in and do their own cuts. And so we try to coordinate with them to get a better product overall. Regarding Stanford Ranch and the Park Drive area, we're currently preparing bids to go out and to do some work on Park for like dig outs in various areas so that we can come back and do some more striping. And so there's some work on the horizon. To get more specific, please, if I have your contact information, I can easily reach out to you and let you know what's on the horizon and what's going out to bid. But that engineering 5-year plan is going to be helping us drive where the future projects are. But we have projects going all throughout the city, and it really depends on what the need is and if we're coordinating with schools or utility companies with their projects. And so, yeah.
All right.
Great, thank you.
I'll hop in on e-bikes. I'll kind of do a condensed version. We've been talking about e-bikes quite a bit tonight. It's been a top priority for us over the past couple of years. There's been some challenges for us as far as some of the laws at the state level, as far as how we can enforce related to traditional bicycles. We've been able to kind of navigate that by working with our school district and bringing on a policy. We've seen great success over the last couple of months related to that policy. As far as enforcement goes out on the street, like the example you provided with our motorcycle officer, we do enforcement out on the streets as well. And there's been times where we'll issue citations to the youth e-bike rider, sometimes to the parents. We've towed some of these e-bikes in extreme situations. Again, though, our goal from the beginning is really to get back to addressing it at the source, which is the type of equipment, and the policy that we were able to work with the school district on, that was adopted in December, is going to be really helpful and beneficial, I believe, to this community, both currently and certainly moving forward.
Thank you, Chief. Those are all the questions we have that came through the QR code. It looks like we do have one more question that came through on the Zoom Q&A. Elizabeth, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so the additional question that came in, I will read this. Says, any thoughts on how voter-approved parcel tax supporting the Rocklin parks would be prioritized if a sales tax initiative was pushed forward? So I don't know, maybe we want a little bit of clarification from Mr. Thornsberry
I know
about
what
what
that is,
the
Elizabeth. We got it.
Yes, I think, Allie, that you'd probably be the best person to answer that one. Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I can share for the group. Right now, City of Rocklin or property owners are all assessed a $30 per year park assessment fee. So $30 on your property tax bill per year. It generates about $600,000 a year that is directly assigned into the parks budget for their expenses. And so the Parks Department has about a $10 million budget, and this covers $600,000 of that. So it's a help, but it's certainly not a huge windfall for the department. But as you know, every dollar counts, and we appreciate it. It does have, I believe, a sunset in maybe 2 or 4 years. It either expires in 28 or 30. So the question, which is now gone, so I can't look at it anymore. How do I get it back, Elizabeth?
I
Um,
marked it as red. I can read it back to
oh,
you.
no,
So
no, I got it right here. So how would it be prioritized? What I would say to you, Travis, is the city's going to have to decide whether or not it wants to talk to the residents about a campaign for that park tax, extending it or increasing it in the future. And certainly, if a sales tax ends up being the idea of putting a sales tax on the ballot is something the city council wants to move forward with and is taken to the voters. Certainly, the success or failure of that sales tax will probably have a big impact on whether or not that park tax is looked at as something that needs to maintain remain in place or not. But that's something that we're not really thinking about right now because it's a few years out.
Thank you. All right. Unless there are any last questions that have come in, I think I still have my, hold on, make sure that that's still up. Is it still sharing? I think it's still sharing the screen, right? Okay. So yeah, so if you have any last questions, you have the options to put that in Zoom. You also have the option to put that in through the QR code. Our town hall series right now is wrapping up at this stage of the process with a final meeting next Tuesday, March 31st at Council Chambers, 3970 Rocklin Road. That also will have a Zoom option, so you're free to join in then as well, either via Zoom or in person. Because those of you who showed up at 6 o'clock, I will be giving the same presentation, so you can skip the first 15 minutes or so and join the Q&A. And we have now done this, would have done this 4 times, as well as a number of other communications with smaller groups or targeted groups. So been having this conversation, and we will take this information, compile it, and make presentation eventually back to the public and the city council about what next steps might be. So if there's no questions that have come in, Elizabeth, Gabby, I'm not seeing you jump on.
Just one final logistic question. This meeting is being recorded, so do we plan on making this available for people who are not able to attend?
Yes. So this particular session being on Zoom was able to be recorded, so it will be on our website, rocklin.ca.us/community survey, as well as it will be published on YouTube, so you'll be able to get the link there and follow along with this conversation. Mm-hmm.
And then one last comment came in that I'll read off for the good of the group. The commenter said that they are in support of extending and increasing the park tax. Great meeting and responses. Rocklin has a great team. Thanks for going into the sales tax topic the way you had and planning for development. Andrew, looking forward to the next steps for Rocklin.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, with that, I appreciate everybody's attendance. As I mentioned, it's great when the community engages with us this way. It makes for good decision making and good policy. So thank you all.